All right, welcome back to the channel. So, Jermall Charlo puts David Benavidez on notice that he is on his way. Let's talk about Jermall Charlo and David Benavidez in a fight at 168 pounds in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel, man. Look, this will be a Christmas present, man. Boxing is a real funny sport in that it takes a real long time, often, for you to really get fights that you want to make, that you want to be made, and that you want to see. And this is one of the situations where I think that there's a tremendously good fight that would be underrated by a lot of people, because both of them are well known. They're well known fighters, but they're not, obviously not definitely not David Benavidez, but probably not even Jermall Charlo are really on the level of, as far as notoriety that, say, a Canelo Alvarez is or an Errol Spence Jr. is. I mean, obviously, there's not a lot of people on Canelo Alvarez's level or Errol Spence's um, or Manny Pacquiao's, those type of guys. I would say Terrence Crawford even, because although his numbers in boxing matches, the viewership numbers and stuff that he gets on his shows might not be as high as you'd like them to be. They are, still some substantial amount of people know and watch who Terrence Crawford is. So, big fights, including Terrence Crawford and somebody else, would be spoken about a lot. A big fight between Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford obviously is spoken about a lot, and people are really, interested in, as well as, the Deontay Wilder Tyson Fury rematch, the Joshua's, all those type of fights. But there are in boxing some fights that really wind up being, where you can look for them. And even though the not people who are not hardcore boxing fans really would put the two and two together, we know that it is probably that some of these fights are the best fights that can be made in boxing. And I think that this Jermall Charlo versus David Benavidez is definitely one of them. I think that it might not be like the same scenario as, say, like a Bernard Hopkins versus Roy Jones Jr. Right early in their career. Roy Jones Jr. was a big time, Roy Jones Jr. was a big time star coming out of the Olympics. And Bernard Hopkins had lost earlier in his career, but he was really had a lot of momentum and was becoming the all-time great 160 pounder that he turned out to be. And those guys fought early in their career. Roy Jones Jr. Won, Bernard Hopkins lost, but then they both moved on and went on and had apps continued to have terrific careers. And the loss never really affected Bernard Hopkins. And so this is the type of scenario that I think we could see with the Jermall Charlo versus David Benavidez. Jermall Charlo is being the 160-pound WBC champion, is an undefeated fighter, just like David Benavidez, who's the WBC 168 pound champion, is a undefeated fighter. But Jermall Charlo is somebody that has had a very difficult time being able to get fights and prove that he is the best in a particular weight class. So when he was at 154 pounds and Canelo Alvarez was at 154 pounds, Canelo Alvarez did not fight Jermall Charlo. When Jermall Charlo then moved up to 160 pounds and became the mandatory for Canelo Alvarez for the WBC belt, Canelo Alvarez drops the belt. When he drops the belt, well, he doesn't drop the belt, excuse me. The WBC gave him a franchise title, which means that he's no longer champion and he doesn't have to fight any mandatories. He's no longer the regular champion. He's some special guy, that doesn't have to fight mandatories, that the WBC aren't going to really put any rules on. All they want is their cut of the paycheck, right? All they want is is their cut of the purse from both of the fighters, and they're okay with it. So when Canelo Alvarez was allowed to go that route, that prevented Jermall Charlo again from being able to prove that he's the best fighter there. And now, with the grand exception of Demetrius Andrade, nobody else at 160 pounds wants to fight Jermall Charlo, wants to fight for Jermall Charlo's 160-pound belt. either. Gennady Golovkin has no interest in that. And now Demetrius Andrade is a bit of an interesting story because I do know that Demetrius Andrade is in the same situation right now that Jermall Charlo is, which is that nobody wants to fight him because they know full well that that Demetrius Andrade is a terrific fighter, fighting out of the southpaw stance, very unorthodox, awkward, highly skilled, and has the ability to beat any of these guys. But he can't get the fight now. Jermall Charlo not fighting him though. You know, from a personal point of view, if I was Jermall Charlo, I could understand why he would say, "Nah, man, I'm not even entering into an agreement with Demetrius Andrade," because Demetrius Andrade pulled out of a fight at 154 pounds and kept Jermall Charlo from getting his first shot at a title shot. And also by ducking away from a fight with Jermall Charlo, he stole Jermall Charlo's opportunity to prove that he was one of the best fighters in the world, because that would have been the best fight that Jermall Charlo would have had to date. Like, even though Jermall Charlo has gone through and I believe has proved himself to be, a top pound for pound fighter in the world, in my opinion, notice how opinions work, by the way, dummies. Notice how opinion works. Some of y'all, man, glad stupidity ain't contagious. Anyway, so he ruined his opportunity. That ruined his opportunity to get Demetrius Andrade on his resume, and it also took the opportunity from Demetrius Andrade to get a real win, but it was on Demetrius Andrade's back. So I can understand Jermall Charlo holding a grudge and saying, "Nah, man, I'm not willing to do it with him." And plus, you're the WBO champion, and that's the whatever Bob orders belt or whatever Eddie Hearn orders, as long as Bob Arum ain't got a fighter, fighting with the WBO. At least that's the way it seems to me. So I got to make that slow for some of y'all. That's the way it seems to me from looking at the facts that I have seen. My interpretation is that. Now, yo, boy, y'all amateur sleuths be killing me. Now, David Benavidez there. You have Caleb Plant there. You have Billy Ho Saunders, the dude that got suspended and lost his WBO 160-pound title because he tested positive for performance-enhancing drugs. That Billy Ho Saunders up at 168 pounds is a nobody in the United States. Don't nobody want to see him fight. Don't nobody care about him. And, as a result, he's not the most tantalizing fight in the world for somebody to 168 pounds. In fact, I might call Billy Ho Saunders a complete and utter waste of time for anybody in the United States trying to get some legitimacy in any weight class. And plus, you got to be worried about guys like Billy Ho Saunders, because Billy Ho Saunders, tests positive for performance-enhancing drugs with things that are illegal in the UK, but legal in the United States. So, he's kind of like whatever. And then you got Callum Smith, another guy from the UK that is not, whatever. As far as that dude's skill set goes, he's just, another pretty much hyped up domestic, UK domestic level fighter that has a belt at 168, that is waiting around to see if he can, get lucky and get a payday by getting beat up by Canelo Alvarez. So, there's really nothing at 168 pounds except for, the Caleb Plant fight. Let me get that straight. The Caleb Plant fight I do think is significant for David Benavidez, but it's not as significant as a fight with Jermall Charlo. And for Jermall Charlo, that would be an opportunity for him to get a championship in his third division. And that puts Jermall Charlo in, starts putting him in kind of rarefied air, man. He's up there with Vasily Lomachenko that would have won belts in 3 weight classes. He'd be there with not with Manny Pacquiao, but Manny Pacquiao has done well over 3 weight classes. Floyd Mayweather Jr. has done 3 or more weight classes. Oscar De La Hoya. So when you start winning weight classes, between 154 and 168, man, it really starts doing something. But the fight is not that easy. Now, as far as who would win that fight, that's a tough call, man. I think that I would go for Jermall Charlo in that, because Jermall Charlo, I think, is, first of all, he's a very big dude, man. Like, this guy must be one of the most disciplined people on the planet because of how he was able to continue to make 154 pounds and being as big as this guy is. he is significantly bigger than his brother, who's at 154 pounds. And Jermall Charlo can't be too much. Jermell can't be too much longer for 154 pounds. But very disciplined guy at 160 pounds. He definitely still carried his power. Last guy knocked out, flipped him, flipped him head over, flipped him overhead, but head over heels, rolling into the corner. But I think that guy, Dennis Hogan, he might have been a 154 pounder that moved up. But look, man, this would be a terrific fight. I think it's better than the Jermall Charlo versus David Benavidez versus. I think it's better than the David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant fight. But I would love to see all of those fights, and I hope, and I'm sure that Jermall is going to wind up moving to 168 pounds, soon, because he said he's on his way. But I think his body is going to his body is insistent that he gets up there, man. A guy close to 6 feet tall. I think he might be 6 foot, something like that. Continuing to fight at 160 pounds, might, and he's a big frame guy too. That might be a little bit too difficult to continue. But I certainly hope we get to see it. You let me know what you think in the comment section about it. And with that, I'm out. Peace.